catch me howling at the moon.
Kings Island in Mason, Ohio received the Park of the Year award at the 2022 Golden Ticket Awards, which is basically the amusement park equivalent to winning Song of the Year at the Grammys. More recently, Kings Island was named the #2 amusement park in the United States by USA Today, a ranking that raised a few eyebrows, especially considering Cedar Point's placement at #4 on that same list. And while it is fair to question the accuracy of those outlets and their awards, what's more difficult to deny is that Kings Island has quietly wiggled its way into the conversation of being one of the best amusement parks in the nation. Ever since Kings Island became a Cedar Fair park in 2006 as part of the Paramount Parks acquisition, the park has lived in this weird gray area, being considered a great amusement park on its own merit, while also being massively overshadowed by the chain's flagship park in the same state just 200 miles down the road. And while Cedar Point has always received preferential treatment from the chain, at least in terms of capital expenditures and record-breaking attractions, Kings Island has built up a well-rounded ride collection of its own over the past decade, reaching a coaster count of 16 in 2024 with another major addition looming on the horizon. And although Kings Island can't stack up to Cedar Point's world-class coaster lineup, it now outshines Cedar Point in almost every other category. Things like operations, food and entertainment, landscaping, park ambiance. Kings Island's excellence in these categories has elevated it to a reputation of being one of the most well-run parks in the country. And I'm glad that Kings Island is finally getting its flowers, because it's consistently one of the most enjoyable amusement parks I visit. I first visited Kings Island in 2010, and have visited in 3 of the last 4 years. And each time I'm there, my belief grows stronger that this is one of the best amusement parks in the country. So today I'm going to cover everything Kings Island, outlining the many things the park does so well, and towards the end I'll lay out a 3-step realistic path the park could take in the next half-decade to actually become the best amusement park in the entire country. But first, if you guys have an amusement park visit coming up, I recently released a strategic park guide titled Become a Park Pro. This is a collection of universal tips and tricks I've found to be very effective in experiencing the most rides and attractions at a park, even during the busiest of days. It covers a wide variety of concepts, like how ride capacities affect wait times, and how to craft a custom game plan for your own park visit. So go check out my strategic theme park guide using the first link in the description. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, I'll give you a code which will get you 20% off your copy. Let's start this review of Kings Island with a lightning round of the park's 16 roller coasters. Starting off with Kings Island's excellent selection of smaller roller coasters for younger thrill seekers in the Planet Snoopy section of the park. First off, you have the Great Pumpkin Coaster for the very little ones. Then working your way up, you have Flying Ace Aerial Chase, a suspended family coaster, and Woodstock Express, a family wooden coaster that opened with the park in 1972. In 2024, Kings Island will debut Snoopy Soapbox Racer, one of the first Vekoma family boomerangs in the nation. I just rode several of these in Europe, including an exact clone of the version coming to Kings Island, and this is an excellent addition for the park. These rides are smooth and enjoyable, while also offering a higher level of thrills than the 3 existing kids coasters in Planet Snoopy. It'll serve as a great stepping stone to some of the park's larger coasters. Adventure Express is a great aero mine train with some quirky thematic features and some intense elements that will catch you off guard. I would say this is probably the second best aero mine train in the country, behind Thunderation at Silver Dollar City. Backlot Stunt Coaster is the park's premier rides family launch coaster, and I really enjoy these coasters. They're really easy to ride and have some fun theming. This one does kind of sit awkwardly in the middle of the park, and it does kind of feel like a more important coaster should be there, but nonetheless, this is one of my favorite coasters in the park to ride. Racer is the park's 1972 original racing wooden coaster from Philadelphia Toboggan. I've always really liked this ride, and then it received an extensive retrack in 2021 and a gorgeous new paint job in 2022 for its 50th anniversary, which has really just elevated this coaster and how it looks in the rest of the park. This is just a charming, punchy, old school wooden coaster. The Bat is the park's second take at an aero suspended coaster, one of only 3 of these models left in the country, and the best one in my opinion. It has a great location in sort of this valley in the back of the park, and a layout that really maximizes the ride's ride swinging element. Flight of Fear is the enclosed Premier Rides launch coaster featuring a 54-mile-per-hour launch and 4 inversions that pack a punch. This ride has poor capacity even with Kings Island's great operations, so if you want to avoid a wait, I'd ride it as early as possible. Invertigo is a Vekoma inverted boomerang, which kind of awkwardly sits in its own corner of what's technically the action zone section of the park, and it's easily the most intense coaster in the park, pulling 5 Gs. So if you're into feeling like your face is being melted off, you'll like Invertigo. The Beast is Kings Island's legendary 1979 wooden coaster, notorious for being the longest wooden roller coaster on Earth and second longest roller coaster in the world, period, spanning a staggering 7,361 feet. It's also renowned for giving some of the best night rides of any roller coaster in the world. Now, I've never been a Beast stan by any means, because in all honesty, it doesn't do a whole lot with all of that track, but the park has taken such great care of it recently with several retracks, making it a much more enjoyable coaster than it used to be in the past. And it's hard for me not to have an appreciation for just how excessively enormous this coaster is, especially when you consider it was built in the 1970s. Banshee is the park's new generation B&M invert, which many people, including me, have mixed feelings on. Banshee is unique to all the other B&M inverts out there, with the large, more drawn-out elements which give it a different collection of forces. But it still has that patented B&M invert intensity, which is really where Banshee shines. However, the ride has developed quite a bad rattle that's led to a rough ride experience almost anywhere you sit besides the front couple of rows. And it'll be interesting to see how Kings Island addresses those issues going forward. Diamondback is Kings Island's original B&M hypercoaster, opening back in 2009. And this was really the first of a handful of major investments Cedar Fair put into Kings Island that's allowed the park to become what it is today. I personally have fond memories of Diamondback because it was one of the major new roller coasters the year I got into theme parks. And to this day, I still think Diamondback holds up pretty well. It's got great floater airtime with a hint of ejector in some spots, obviously that incredibly scenic splashdown finale, and a great name and theme that I think really encapsulates the vibe of the Rivertown area of the park. Orion is the park's new for 2020 B&M Giga Coaster, and this is a speed-oriented coaster through and through, containing mostly elements that complement the ride's 91-mile-per-hour top speed. The fast-paced wave turn and speed hill are both elite elements where the feeling of speed is almost overwhelming. Orion's weakness, though, is that it is a comparatively short ride when you stack it up against other Giga coasters. For me, it's always been a toss-up on whether Diamondback or Orion is better. In my last 3 visits, I think my opinion has changed every single time, but as of now, I think I would give Diamondback the nod simply because I just love airtime. But to me, the very clear #1 best roller coaster at Kings Island is Mystic Timbers. This 2017 GCI creation does everything you want a wooden coaster to do, and does it extremely well. It has an excellent layout with great pacing, a good variety of airtime and laterals, and it's still running so smooth. In this new age of coasters where everyone seems to be infatuated with this idea of adding all sorts of bells and whistles to the concept of a traditional wooden coaster, Mystic Timbers is perhaps the gold standard of what can be accomplished with just timber, and it's undoubtedly one of the best wooden roller coasters in the country. Let's talk about some of my overall thoughts about Kings Island, starting with a few of the many things that I like about this park. First of all, the ride selection. As you just saw, Kings Island's coaster collection is extremely deep, with a good variety of different experiences and levels of intensities, and the park doesn't really have a bad coaster. I'm usually down to ride every single coaster when I visit, and I think that's mostly a testament to how well they take care of their rides. The well-roundedness extends to other attractions as well, from the more extreme rides like Drop Tower and Delirium, to the water attractions, to the nice variety of traditional flat rides. It's a very complete feeling ride collection, and Kings Island operates those rides extremely well. Most of the employees are from the surrounding area, and you feel and witness this sense of local pride in their work, which is pretty rare to see at a chain park like this these days. You can really just tell that the ride ops care about doing a good job and being quick, and even on extremely busy days in the middle of summer, lines are just moving. Not only are the daily operations extremely efficient, but you also hardly ever see rides closed. Kings Island seems to be one of the only parks in the country that magically never runs into staffing issues. And going back to that point on this sense of park pride, I really admire how Kings Island does an excellent job at honoring and celebrating its park history. The park's 50th anniversary celebration in 2022 2022 felt like something out of a Disney park. And in the last 3 years, the park's 3 oldest major coasters have each received some kind of refurbishment or upgrade. Kings Island has really made a commitment to honoring its heritage and restoring its beloved classic attractions, probably more so than I've ever seen at a large chain park like this. And I wish other parks would lean into their history more. It fosters a sense of nostalgia, but also creates this tangible community pride that I believe carries over to the park's employees and patrons. It's noticeable in larger things like the park's upkeep and landscaping, down to the smaller details like food offerings and thematic touches. It's abundantly clear that a lot of care and love goes into this park, and that both the employees and locals of Kings Island just love Kings Island. And I would go as far as to say that this kind of implicit park pride is the main reason why Kings Island has elevated itself into the conversation of being a top 5 amusement park in America, which is backed up by some of the recent accolades it's received. It's a little difficult for me to do this video in the style that I'd normally review a park, because Kings Island just seems to do everything pretty damn well. So I'm going to take a more forward-looking direction and offer some suggestions for the future. And I came up with a straightforward 3-step plan that I think would elevate Kings Island from its status of being a great amusement park into the conversation of being the nation's #1 amusement park. The first 2 steps address a current weakness of the park, so you can also view this part of the video as where I'd normally say some of the things I don't like about a park. And the last step addresses what to do with a large empty plot of land, which you could probably guess where I'm going with that. And not only do I think these are all fairly realistic and reasonable, but I also think they're all achievable within as soon as a 5-year time frame. Step 1. Regain the title of Best Kids Area. Planet Snoopy at Kings Island won the Golden Ticket Award for Best Kids Area for 18 straight years, before being dethroned by Wildwood Grove at Dollywood in 2019. Now, I'm not saying the park literally has to win back the Golden Ticket Award, but I do think that the Planet Snoopy area has started to look a little worn and outdated, and is more than due for some kind of upgrade. The new for 2024 Camp Snoopy expansion to the kids area seems like it will address some of those issues, and may be the park's bid to regain that title of Best Kids Area, with the additions of Snoopy's Soapbox Racers and a new play area, along with a much needed repaint of Flying Ace Aerial Chase. Now, from my understanding, this is just an expansion to the existing Planet Snoopy, not a full-on retheme of the entire area, but I do wish it was an entire overhaul of the section, because the new Camp Snoopy areas at other Cedar Fair parks are so well done, and have a much more focused theme than Planet Snoopy, which is about as generic and bland as it gets. Regardless though, this expansion should breathe some new life into the area and give it a new marquee attraction. And I think if they do a thorough enough job with this expansion, Kings Island can knock out Step 1 in 2024. Step 2. Give Action Zone a new identity. Action Zone is a big section of the park left over from the Paramount days, featuring a hodgepodge of random attractions with mostly generic themes. Action Zone is completely lacking any sort of identity and is frankly pretty ugly. Over the past several years, Cedar Fair has put a big emphasis across the chain on revitalizing old park sections into reimagined areas, with more cohesive theming, updated attractions, and modern food and beverage options. And just this past year, Kings Island reimagined the old Oktoberfest area of the park into Adventure Port, which was a much needed transformation that saw 2 new flat rides, an updated restaurant, thematic upgrades to Adventure Express, as well as giving a vibrant ambiance to that central area of the park. I would love to see Action Zone get that same treatment and get a complete transformation to a more comprehensive theme for the area. Now, with the attractions currently existing in Action Zone, I don't think there's an obvious in-your-face direction to go thematically for that area, but you do have kind of this spooky thread of both Banshee and the Bat, so maybe you lean into some kind of haunted themed overhaul. And if the park really wanted to go above and beyond with this project, I think Kings Island is eventually due for some kind of Cedar Point or Carowinds style facelift to the park's front entrance, which is currently a bit of an eyesore. As part of a grander front entrance project, you could also consider removing Invertigo and Congo Falls to build a notable coaster that interacts with the front entrance like Gatekeeper and Fury. But for now, I think giving Action Zone an overall facelift that results in it receiving some semblance of a cohesive theme would go a long way in improving that area of the park. Step 3. Replace Vortex with a world-class roller coaster. Vortex was Kings Island's Aero Mega Looper, which was removed in 2019, leaving a large plot of land in a prime area of the park between Rivertown and Coney Mall. It's been 4 years since Vortex closed, and the park has now added 2 new roller coasters while this massive area still sits vacant. So it's safe to say the park is saving this plot of land for something special and or significant in size. If you really pick apart Kings Island's ride lineup, you're not going to find many holes. But I think the roller coaster missing for a park of this caliber is that one elite world-class roller coaster. The one that people travel from all over the planet just to experience it. And while Diamondback, Orion, and Mystic Timbers are all great roller coasters in my book, I'm talking about the type of ride that's clearly in the mix as one of the best roller coasters in the world. A lot of people thought Kings Island missed an opportunity to do that with Orion in 2020, but it's pretty evident Cedar Fair intentionally designed that coaster so that it would have no chance of being better than Fury 325. And I think that's a criterion that Kings Island will have to work around for its next major roller coaster. Cedar Fair is likely not going to let them build an upgraded version of the same model as any of the chain's marquee roller coasters. So if Kings Island's next coaster is truly going to be a best in the world type ride, this rules out a few options. First and most obviously a ground up RMC, given the chain's rocky relationship with the manufacturer and with one of the best in the world right down the road at Cedar Point. Second, it probably also won't be an Intamin multi-launch coaster. These are all the fad right now and would be an interesting choice for Kings Island, especially with the whispers that Cedar Fair executives love Velocicoaster and are looking to replicate the same kind of ride experience at one of their parks. And honestly, with Maverick's layout being more low to the ground with an emphasis on speed and transitions, I think you could probably get away with creating a coaster with more of an emphasis on height and inversions, something like a Taiga at Linnanmaki. But again, I doubt Cedar Fair is going to want to build something that tops or even challenges Maverick, which to be fair is still a top 10 coaster in its own right. So that leaves a few options. The park is working with Vekoma for the Family Boomerang in 2024, so if that goes smoothly, maybe they go back to them in a couple years and build one of their sit-down thrill coasters. These rides are smooth and intense with great inversions, and if they went all out with a larger model than what currently exists, they could easily come up with one of the best roller coasters in the world. But I think the clear and obvious choice is for Kings Island to call up Mach Rides and build a completely unhinged extreme spinning coaster. Now selfishly, I probably just want another one of these in the United States, but I do think this would work well at Kings Island on so many different levels. First, a spinning coaster is one of the few common coaster types that Kings Island currently doesn't have. Second, a pretty fair number of people who travel to Belgium and go on Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland call it the best roller coaster in the world. And third, the only Mach extreme spinner currently in the United States is over 600 miles away at Silver Dollar City. Time Traveler is the prototype of this model, and despite it being significantly tamer than its Belgian cousin, I still consider it to be one of the best roller coasters in the country. So building an extreme spinning coaster that's on par with, or even a little less intense than Ride to Happiness, would still be something that people in the United States have never seen before, and with almost complete certainty would be a top 10 roller coaster in the country. Kings Island gets its standout gut punch roller coaster, while none of the other marquee coasters in the Cedar Fair chain lose their status. It's a win-win in my book. With the upwards trajectory Kings Island's been on in the last several years, if you do those 3 things: upgrade Planet Snoopy to a condition where it's worthy of being named Best Kids Area, upgrade and tidy up the largest eyesore area of the park, and add a legitimate world-class roller coaster, it's hard for me to see how Kings Island doesn't end up being the best amusement park in the United States. Download my strategic theme park guide today and use code KI20 to get 20% off your copy.